Yegede was staring at the many bodies that lay on the ground. He saw Omer lying still and went to him. He was still breathing. He made Omer to face up, and Omer looked up to the general he served with great loyalty for years. His face was pale and blood was spewing out from his mouth. We did it, General. We made it. Shh, you'll be okay. Yegede put his hand on the mouth of Omer. He pulled a cloth from his pocket and wiped the blood from his soldier's face. The Vamoths with them quickly attended the wounded. Leonardo was in disbelief seeing the many dead ones before him, Malservius, Ibeths, soldiers, Geradians, Nugus and a few Werims. He could not stand the view of so many lives that were lost for his decision to save his family. He felt guilt as tears ran down from his cheeks. He could have averted the loss of many lives, he thought, until a soft hand touched his shoulder. When he looked back, it was the face of the beautiful Lizzie glowing before him. He hugged her and buried his head onto her shoulders as he released the emotions from his heart. Yegede was holding Omer's hand as he expired at the sight of his general while being attended by a Vamoth for his wounds. Eyes were still gazing up. Yegede bowed his head as he closed Omer's eyes. He stood up while the Vamoth tried to revive Omer, but he knew Omer was gone. He glanced at Leonardo and his face revealed pain. He too was badly wounded as his right hand pressed his side as it continued to bleed, soaking his armor and leather pants. An arrow from a Malservia went through his defenses, hitting his side that he just pulled out. He looked around at the scattered remains of the dead and those who survived. There were not much left of his soldiers and the Ibeths, as more than half of them died in the battle. His eyes were beginning to blur at the sight of his fallen general. The voice was calling Yegede, but it was so faint and fading for him to hear. The owner of the voice slowly came towards Yegede. General. It was then Yegede turned around and saw Drund coming towards him. Just as Drund was about to be on his side, Yegede fell to his knee while leaning his left hand on the ground as his right pressed his wound. Drund caught him before his body totally went to the ground. Drund saw his wound. I need help. The general is wounded. The Vamoth attending to Omer quickly aided Yegede while two other Vamoths, seeing the great general fell, came to assist. They tried to stop the general's bleeding as he called upon Leonardo's name. Leonardo. Drund looked around for Leonardo and saw him from afar, face still buried onto the shoulders of Lizzie, who was comforting him. He called his name loud, and it was then that Leonardo glanced at him. Leonardo saw Drund sitting with his knees while Yegede's head rested on his arms as he kept shouting his name. Several soldiers quickly gathered around their general as he detached himself from Lizzie and joined the others that quickly ran towards the great general. He kneeled before him. Yegede. Leonardo. I will not make it. No, you will, Yegede. You. Listen, Leonardo, go with my soldiers. Save your family first. When you are done, promise me that you will save my country. Promise me. Leonardo knew what Yegede meant. He wanted him to rule Igathansha as he fell silent, seeing Yegede's eyes winked fast as if wanting him to make a promise while pressing his hand tight with the general's bloodied hand. He nodded at the dying general as Yegede coughed out and blood came out from his mouth. The general was saving his last breath as he pulled away his right hand at Leonardo and tucked it inside his clothes and pulled something from its pocket. His bloodied hand was able to take a hold of the cloth given to him by King Asiv and handed it to Drund. Drund, give this to Bitburg, and if you don't find him till you come back to Igathansha, own this. Drund was not getting what his general was trying to tell him at first as he held the bloodied cloth with his right hand. He knew that Bitburg was heading towards the west, and then he understood, for Bitburg was the second in command of the great soldiers of Igathansha, and he was the next after Omer. He tucked the cloth inside his metal vest as Yegede's eyes turned up to sky and blinked fast. He then glanced at the dead body of Omer that was lying almost beside him. He coughed once more and Leonardo saw his life departed when his right arm dropped from his body to the ground. The great general of Igathansha passed away.